Oh boy, need that coffee. That debate, Spencer, Styx. Oh, I get off work and I'm like, what? Spencer, Styx, and fucking Sargon are going at it? Okay, I now understand Arini. I get it. I never saw, I don't watch Sargon's streams. I watch like when he does a prepared presentation. So I've never witnessed when he obviously thinks he is just simply in every way superior to who he's talking to, and is just that he has three things he wants to make this person say, and he's going to just simply insist, no, I am going to just keep insisting you say this series of words, because I that's my career is I obviously have a reason to make you say these words. I'm probably going to use them against you in a way that possibly in or out of context, who knows, but I'm going to make you say these words. And there's no long history of shady people doing that in debate in media. And I'm just sitting there and just like, you don't get how you're coming across here. And you're not going to. Even when you listen to it, even if one of your friends tells you, you're not going to get it. I think you're at that stage now that you I think for the rest of your fucking life, you're going to think that Richard Spencer got blown the fuck out. And there were a lot of people who were in the comments saying, oh yeah, look at, Spencer's doing this and Spencer's doing that. And so I just really wanted to get into, there were two places where Sargon got his fucking legs broke. One was he didn't even know. This was really that he went for a fucking shin kick, and he fucking broke his leg. And then the other one, Spencer just went whack, and by the end of it, you're like, dude, that his leg is fucking broken, just it was sweep the leg, Johnny, it was, and it was over and over again, like sweep my leg again, come on, sweep it. Sweep it. I want to hear you. I want to see you sweep it. I want everyone in the world to see you sweep my leg again, Richard. So he can't come up with details on how a state would be established in the future. He's advocating for such a state. How it could happen, he doesn't know. He can't know. This is one of the easiest things to understand. And what hit me is I was like, why is there, and then there was what was the other argument that actually these two work together, that I suddenly was like, wait a second. Sargon's not getting how this isn't working in his favor. He's not getting, like, bro, you're arguing. And then I'm like sitting there like, okay, what is it? What is it? What is it? I know what I'm hearing here. Sargon eventually started arguing from the anointed view. Everyone knows what you're proposing can't work. It's preposterous on its face, and you can't even outline for me what the first 100 years of it would look like, who you would appoint president, nor can you give me a budget. Haha, look it, I am brilliant, for I have come up with an insane argument from the point of view of simply believing myself better. This is not what Spencer was doing. Spencer was coming from the tragic view. Styx knew what he was dealing with, because Styx understands the dark arts. It's the only way I could put it. I have no other way of putting this. This is why I understand people like Spencer. I've been confronting white nationalism since freshman year in college. I get freshman year of college, got to fucking talk to these people, and hear what they were really up to. What do they do on a daily basis? How do they get people into their organizations? And I just learning just a little was more than enough, because if you have to go for the dismal point of view, the dark point of view, is, could this ever be done? Not how, not who, oh, so what are you going to get up? Who do you got? You got Mike Enoch, and you got the Chris Cantwell, and what, like a few people in the chat, ho, 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 ho. You know, and it's like, all you see, what Spencer could have done. Spencer could have gone there, and he could have said, so Sargon, when are you going to do some push-ups and protect your women? He could have punked you out and made you look like his bitch. But you see, he doesn't, he can't go there. It would ruin his whole style, his whole thing. He just went to the place where he was absolutely on it. You are coming at this like you are the smart guy and I'm the dumb guy. And he's like, and he really put it in the best way he could. It wasn't a good look. And it wasn't a good look. And it doesn't matter anyone who fucking wants to support Sargon on this one. If I were younger and I were a young man and I had the choice between the murder parade of inner city Black America and, oh, that could be my future. That could be anywhere. Look at how enriching it is. Or I could have a dream. Going through the rap period of the 90s, I saw them all. I did X-Clan. I had them all on cassette. Paris, Black Panther of hip hop. X-Clan. Fucking, was it Jazzy Jeff, Black to the Future? Was it the Sunuka guys, Poor Righteous Teachers, that's another one. All of the native tongue stuff, I knew about them from their first interview on MTV. I was into it. It was Black and it was nationalist, and my white liberal father thought, like, this is good for him. You know, this is good for him to hear this, because he isn't around enough Black people. That's really where my white liberal dad's head was. And it's taken me a while to understand, to meet other men like him and to okay, this is how people like you think. This is really what your understanding of the world is. And as they've aged, more of them, like one of them yesterday told me in confidence, he goes, I just don't like rich people. And it was a good thing. That, I mean, he goes, I know I'm more wealthy than other people, but, and I was like, and it was like, okay. And it was because my generation, I don't think, for my generation and on, and I think especially the more based young people are getting, no, somebody's got to be rich. Somebody's got to do a job well enough that they get rich. Somebody's got to be smart enough to get fucking wealthy. No, at some point, and it's not, people don't steal and get wealthy. This doesn't appear to be how this works, actually. It appears that there's people who are, there's a lot of really dumb people who simply cannot get wealthy. That's actually what it appears like. See, they're starting to understand the tragic point of view. There's a lot of people who are just, they're just warm bodies, and they will be replaced by robots and by AI. They just will. And there will be nothing that can be done about it. And there will be people who they will have very valuable skills, and they will be paid a lot of money. They'll be remunerated very well. And it's just simply the way humans really are, because this is the real world, and there are constraints on people. And when I thought to that debate, I'm like, no, Sargon is not approaching this from the point of view where the constraints on people, the natural forces that would shape the future, are being thought about. Like, and he would probably deny this. And it's like, no, you asked Richard Spencer for details. He couldn't tell you that. Just like, David, not Garon, Ben-Gurion. David Ben-Gurion couldn't have done that. David Ben-Gurion couldn't have told. He would have to lay plans at the moment. Everything like that would happen at the moment. Richard Spencer needs to get an idea in people's heads that maybe what you're and this is the key thing too that I really want to get into is people keep thinking black people hated segregation. White liberals really want to believe that black people love diverse neighborhoods. So neighborhoods with lots of non-black people in them. And they think that black people really, really hated segregation. Everything was really terrible during that period of time. The fact that you're not getting that's neither of those is the absolute. You're gonna have to relearn some stuff about Western history. You've gotten to hear the loud black people. There's lots of loud black people who they wanted to live, on Harvard Square, when they couldn't, back when they couldn't. Okay, they've got that now. But why are there still black people in the South who've never moved and could have? Because they like being around other black people. Why aren't black people not spread out evenly? Because they live among one another because they want to. They can move any place now, and they still live glommed together. And they try to keep their historic neighborhoods free of white people. This can't last. Something's got to change. There's going to have to be a major change in Black American understanding of itself, because white people are changing. White people are now looking back on history, and they're looking back on it from the tragic point of view. Groups of people who are vastly different than one another, living in proximity to one another, will always have conflicts. They'll have conflicts for many, many, many generations, and because that is what all of history tells us. And so you could want an ideal situation out of this. Spencer's not doing ideals. That's where why he kept saying this. Liberals are idealists. They have taken an ideal and have tried to shape the world with it. They have not taken the world and let it shape their understanding of how to. Because what would you do then? No, really, that's the thing. What would you do then? That's the question that has to be asked. Well, if you were to just take people for what they are, then what would you do? And it's like, well, that isn't. Yes, and that we go from there. Well, you would do what would make sense in that context, that time. In Russia, the context is a Russian Orthodox point of view, modern European point of view, but with a Russian Orthodox tilt to it, or Russian Orthodox preferentialism, Slavic racial preferentialism, because it's a Slavic land of Russian Orthodox people primarily, with the acknowledgement of Buddhism, Islam, and Catholicism in Russia. And then I've heard it from his mouth. So don't doubt me on that. It was at Valdai 2014. So in the context of that Richard Spencer's talking about, he can't know what you're going to do about the ethno-state because he doesn't know. He doesn't know who would want to form it yet. He doesn't have volunteers. It's like, and then it's this thing of, well, what if they were to just move like the Mormons? Because this is actually the big important thing. This is the thing people don't get. That's a real thing. That happened. There's really been movements for there to be like the white nationalists to move to certain parts of the country, to this part of the country, Oregon, Washington, Western Idaho. This was totally like a movement, white Israelitism, and the British Israelites. The Black Israelites actually are, they're the same pieces of same papers. They just put black in it. Swear to God, it's like it's bizarre. Somebody actually got into. They said, "Yeah, I actually have their paperwork, and it's the same paperwork as blah 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 blah. This organization, the British Israelites." It appears this was literally lifted from their paperwork. It's really funny, which makes it only more pathetic. Would there be an objection if there was some mass movement to the Northwest or Northeast around like where Styx lives? Like, would there be a big objection to that? What if people just moved and you had no idea that they were white nationalists and no clue? They were just very, very conservative, very Republican. You had just no idea that now this can be done. This absolutely can be done. The white nationalists can just decide we're going to mass populate this one state. We're going to move to these number of towns. They could totally pull this off, and it's just that, and they could do it undetected, pretty much. It would be that once people detect it, would they object? If these people they never declared a nation state, anything like that. It's just that it's obvious that's what's going on there. To them, they're looking out for theirs, and they have very, very low crime. It becomes like this sort of strange zone of prosperity and low crime. But nobody really thinks about it because it's just a bunch of white people living out in the middle of nowhere. See, it could be done. It's just that he's throwing the idea out there. And the reason why is he's throwing the idea out there is because ethnic minorities in the United States do say to your face things about how much they don't like you. They make songs and music and media that says we resent you and we are going to undo your society. We're not going to create anything. We're going to just ruin your society and ruin it because they're not creating something instead. Because that's what would happen is, you see, if people were like, if there was all this stuff that was like Chinese Buddhist stuff that kept coming out in the media, you'd be like, I think the Chinese are pushing Buddhism. See, that would be building something. That would be a thing. But you see, when you just have, say, the media tearing down Christianity as a moral system and as a part of a culture, as a part of many cultures, that all they're doing is just destroying. They can't offer a system of secular ethics because they fundamentally have no metaphysics to back up what they think is the nature of humans to one another. This was another. Groups are made of individuals. Individuals do not actually have rights unless they're recognized by the group. Rights, it doesn't matter what the hell it says on a piece of paper that Thomas Jefferson wrote. It doesn't matter, liberal tradition, Western world, none of that. This was one I'm like, no. Sargon, you are totally arguing from the anointed point of view on this one. Thomas Sowell's way of saying that's the anointed point of view. You're simply insisting on your ideology being real. Being real as water. Being real as rock. Spencer was talking from the world of rocks and water, the world we all live in. No, when a group says that you no longer have the right to speak and break your jaw, that's that. That's it. And period. Everybody went, you haven't been in a fight. You haven't been in a fight. Apparently you haven't been in a fight. Apparently you haven't had somebody violate your rights enough to understand. This is just a thing we're agreeing to. This is just some phantasm that we all pretend exists, rights. And it's nice that we all do that, but the whole thing that Spencer actually didn't get to touch on, but I actually was sitting there and I'm like, okay, I get where he's coming from. None of that shit matters because a people have a religion. And that's how you know the nature of the individual to the group, and however you understand the universe, whether it's operated from the outside by God, or there's divinities within it, or whatever it is. That's how you establish rights in a culture. Christianity has the rights it has because of the fundamental Christian idea, or the Western world has the idea of rights that developed as it did, not so much out of the Enlightenment. They got that from somewhere too. This came out of the argumentations of Thomas Aquinas. And this was the only way there could be justice, is that an individual human had dignitas, and that they were able to live up to such a dignified state as a human. Otherwise, the virtues would be worthless. There'd be pearls before swine. No, humans are different. Humans can know the virtues. Humans can then practice the virtues. But why would there be judgment if a human had no capacity to learn the virtues and practice them? Then that would just make God cruel. You didn't know I existed. Boom! It's you didn't know good was good. Boom! And it's like, no. Good is obvious on its face. It's actually, people have to cultivate the virtues. This also means that those of us who are Christian have to teach people these are the things about you that are good, and make life wonderful, and they are your virtues. And here's examples of how to the highest exemplary of virtue. Let me tell you a story about this guy. See, this is all tragic views, so you have to then turn it to the Enlightenment thinking, the Enlightenment of the thinking of the anointed. And so it becomes then, once there's human dignitas, a standard for human behavior, at a certain stage it is that you must treat each other then justly, because you see there's a standard below which you should not treat other people. You must respect their human dignitas, and yes, or you do them an injustice, you do them injury, and then justice must be rendered. And that requires there to be a group of people who recognize the arbiter of justice. They also recognize the individuals who have a complaint against one another, or the individual who has injured the other individual. And so all of this still relies on society, on a thing that's society, wherever it is, at whatever time, in whatever manifestation. And this was not something that Sargon was not taking that seriously enough. That he was really not taking seriously that it's like, no, the liberal tradition doesn't mean shit. It's just a set of ideals. And it's such a tenuous set of ideals that Britain can barely maintain it within their own borders now that they've pulled in people from all over the planet. They can barely maintain the very concept of justice. Soon it will vanish probably from Britain, and they will be under some absolutely bizarre form of law that violates the Magna Carta itself. And that's looking like, especially their whole thing of that you have to have females in office, whether any have run or not, stuff like that. Spencer won this one, and Spencer won it from the point of view of tragedy, the tragic constraints humans are under, while Sargon was arguing from the utterly insulted Western liberal tradition. He might as well have been a baby boomer. It might have been a discussion about memes with a baby boomer. It was somebody who simply was not getting where Spencer was going with this. That it's like, he's like, no, it's not now. It's not Trump. It's 20 years, 30 years from now. This will matter. And yeah, 30 years from now, Richard Spencer, people will still still be wary of his words. They'll want to silence him for the rest of his life. Sargon, nobody's going to silence Sargon. No, not really. No. Spencer could get hit in the face for his ideas. Nobody really, people, they might like flip Sargon off. Key his car at worst. People want Spencer dead for what he's saying. And Spencer kept going out of his way to not discuss helicopters or forced removal. He went out of his way to not discuss that kind of stuff because he can't know. And then he went out of his way to say it would be better to have incentivizations and voluntarism on this. And people, this is not going away. Until you take on the tragic point of view, you will lose. And so I highly suggest Visions of the Anointed by Thomas Sowell, so you will understand the tragic point of view. Because the liberals now, this is actually, I'm really seeing it. I'm like, no, this is it. It's come down to this. It is now down to the fundamental views of the universe. And this is going to be interesting. Apparently, that's what 2018 through 2020 is going to be. This is how the world really works, honey. Thomas Jefferson, Hamilton, whoopee-woo, people who write on paper, and people who aren't around anymore. Yeah, well, this is now. And what the Quran says they must do. To make the way things should be is this. This is their ideal world. You will have to deal with that because it and the Constitution can't go together. It and the Magna Carta can't go together. So you will have to deal with it. And that's the issue. All he had to do was take you to the tragic point of view. Why don't you do some squats and protect some of your women, bro? What? Why are you commanded by a bunch of like wayfish homosexuals and whingers and oddballs? Why don't you protect your country in some way? Like, what's wrong with you people? That's and what would have been said? London is a fucking bloodbath. The clubs are closing. The fucking people's faces and bodies are getting opened by knifemen. It's pathetic. It's pathetic to be criticized. Have a Briton criticize you. Do some push-ups. Do some chin-ups. Protect your fucking women. And the same can be said about, Americans, all the shooting. And it's like, yeah. And what is Spencer saying? What is he saying? Well, leave them. No, they could be over here and you don't even have to take guns from them. We'll be over here. That's all he's saying. It's that vague. And that's all you're going to get from him. And the details will be what they will be at the time. Atomic marriage, yeah, that's an Anatolian thing, Christian thing, developed in then Western Europe. It is not even actually normal to Southern Europe, because Southern Europe's consanguinity of native Southern Europeans is much higher than Northern Europeans. This means people fuck their cousins, which means group marriage was common there up until at least by the time the Visigoths and all them got there. There was still group marriage. This means that there was one woman getting fucked by a group of her close relatives. That's how the world works. That's how it always has worked. Briefoltz, the Mothers, gets into this. Atomic marriage is actually so unique to white people that white colonials were teased about it. It was a joke. Look at these guys. They only have one wife.